Now, to break it all down, I want to bring in CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Leisman. Jason Furman was chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors. Douglas Holtz-Eakin is an economist and president of the American Action Forum. And Karen Kimbrough, chief economist for LinkedIn. Okay, I don't know if all of you are surprised as all the headlines would indicate we should be. But Steve, what's your take on these numbers? Is this report as good as it looks?
I am surprised, but I'm also a little skeptical. I think viewers have to know the Bureau of Labor Statistics has had a very difficult time during this pandemic counting jobs. And I think you teased that a bit in your opening remarks when you said how much the prior months had been revised. There was an original print, I guess they said it was 210,000 in November. That number is now 647,000. So they added some 400,000 jobs to November. They added several 100,000 more to December. I'm a little skeptical of this number to the high side. I think there may have been fewer jobs created this time around, but I don't think that matters all that much. I think the story that people need to know is this. The jobs market is very strong. Employers are out there looking for workers. Wages are going up. There is a shortage of workers. And so in any respect that you look at it, I think the job market is reasonably strong. Just I'm a little skeptical of this number being quite so strong. Why? Because the month that the BLS went out there and looked at how many jobs were created that week was the same week as the peak of Omicron. And I think there were a lot of people who were out of work who may have been counted just this month. Overall, though, I think the jobs market's very strong. Well,
could we see, do you think then, Jason, a revision next time? We see two revisions now. Could there be a revision of this? How do you read these numbers?
Look, over the last year, the data's constantly surprised us, mystified us, and been revised. This month, though, almost all the numbers tell a clear and consistent story. You see the headline jobs number. You saw a large increase in labor force participation. That's taken from a different survey. You see the employment rate rising. And you saw really strong wage growth. Wages up 0.7% in a month. To put that in context, it averaged 0.4% per month last year. So, yeah, this may be revised, but we're going to look back at January as the month that the virus ceased to be bought.
Douglas, look, bring this into a sort of conversation that the average American can understand. A lot of folks got, frankly, their 401k statements from January. They were terrible. They see this job report and they think, great, so this is a sign that things are going to come back. And then they look at the stock futures today and they're down. Put it all in context for us.
Well, I think we can easily understand the stock market reaction, and that's simply this guarantees that the Federal Reserve will not just raise in March, but will continue to raise rates through the year. And it, quite frankly, raises the possibility they'll raise more rapidly than they would before, perhaps even twice as large as they'd expected at some point. There's some small chance of that. So now put the stock market aside. What we've really learned through the past couple of years is that with each wave of the virus, the economy has proven to be more and more resilient. There's less economic impact of each wave. And this one, you know, the economy powered right through. So to me, the biggest number in here is that a third of those jobs were in leisure and hospitality. That's the most hard-hit sector through the pandemic. It's the place where a lot of the least skilled, least experienced workers need a job and are now looking to get a job. And so the combination of labor force participation and jobs showing up in that sector with high wages, that's a good news story for the average American. That's what you want to hear.
Yeah, let's talk, Karen, about hiring from your perspective. LinkedIn has new data. Does it show things moving in the right direction?
It absolutely does. I mean, we're seeing jobs created this month at an unprecedented rate. We saw hiring at a record level of 8% on the month and 27% relative to a year ago. So for us, it's been absolutely a banner month in terms of the labor market. And it suggests to us that employers are looking beyond the virus right now. They're ready to hire. And it also suggests, based on our data, that we're seeing a lot more applications per role, a lot more people applying to multiple roles. So it suggests to us as well that people are starting to look beyond Omicron and are starting to come back into the job market. Early days, but it's a very positive sign.
Well, let me ask you this, Steve. There seems to be this big change, right? In December of 2020, I think there were roughly, 7 million job openings, but nearly 11 million people unemployed. Here we are a year later. It's the exact opposite. Nearly 11 million job openings, just over 6 million workers. As we look ahead, what do those numbers mean for the economy?
They mean we have a very long way to go before the job market is in any kind of balance out there. There are all sorts of reasons why we have these problems right now. You've had a lot of additional people retiring. We expect a larger number to retire with the aging of the baby boomers, but more than what was expected are retiring. We have a huge lack of immigrants in this country. Legal immigration has fallen off. It began in the Trump administration, has been continued in the Biden administration. We also have child care issues where women can't come to work because of issues with the virus and school closings and taking care of their kids. So it means that the economy has been strong, but hasn't had the workers that it's needed to really grow maybe as much as it otherwise would. And so that means good news for job seekers. People who are willing to look for additional work should be able to find raises. And we do see that in the data. If you leave your job and find a new one, chances are you got a better paycheck.
Yeah, and Jason, the White House has been trying to tell people the economy is better than it feels. And, you know, you talk about certainly the issue of inflation and the average American saying, look, I'm going to the grocery store and it's costing me a lot more money. Maybe this is another sort of data point that says it is. But when you look at the concerns, including the fact that there are a lot of businesses out there that are having trouble hiring, what are the issues you think that in terms of keeping a robust economy, what are the things we need to look at and what needs to happen?
You know, I'd look at where we are in terms of labor supply. How many people are, you know, wanting to accept all of those job openings that are out there? I expect over the course of this year, we probably see an extra something like 200,000 jobs a month just from people returning to the labor force who left it. But there's a huge question mark around that. If that happens, we could be in a pretty normal place a year from now. If that doesn't happen, we'll maintain a pretty distorted economy as people are trying to consume at a high level without a commensurate number of workers to make things. So that'll be the big thing to look at, what's called labor force participation, the fraction
Yeah,
of
Douglas,
people.
that's been one of my big questions, you know, the psychology of Omicron as it relates to jobs and people who have decided, maybe I'm going to retire early, or I'm just going to take a break, or I'm going to look for something else. My job now isn't fulfilling. Is there any way to track that and sort of get a handle on, if you're somebody who owns a business, how do I fill those jobs and how do I appeal to those folks? And are there people, how many of them actually can be appealed to?
Businesses can provide higher wages. We're seeing them do that. So, you know, the paycheck is in the end the biggest incentive to get people back. You can change the work environment, the flexibility. We see employers doing that as well. They will try to push at every margin to get people back into jobs. But I think for the administration, the lesson here is real simple. The private sector is very strong. Just hand over the recovery to the private sector and focus on the things that the government is uniquely positioned to do, and that is combating the pandemic. And not take your eye off the ball as they did last year. Focus on controlling the virus to the extent possible. Make it possible for people to go back to work in the presence of the virus and maybe new variants. And the labor force problems will take care of themselves. They originated with the virus. They can be cleared up by addressing the pandemic.
Douglas Holtz-Eakin, Karen Kimbrough, Steve Leisman, Jason Furman, thanks to all of you. President Biden, by the way, set to speak about an